the mountainous side of the Bay of Honduras lies the small independent nation of Poyais. Its lush green hills are filled with game and natural resources such as timber and silver. The land itself is perfect for agriculture, and the coffee grown there even surpasses the Java beans in quality. The native Poyais, who hate the Spanish but love the British, are eager to work for mere pennies. But most importantly, the territory is led by an honest Scotsman, a war hero no less, His Highness Cazique Sir Gregor MacGregor. These were just some of the many selling points that were mentioned in the book A Sketch of the Mosquito Shore, written by Sir Thomas Strangeways. The book was designed to attract British settlers to the newly established territory of Poyais. And it worked. Hundreds of Brits and Irishmen sold their belongings and prepared for their new lives in Latin American paradise. There was only one small problem. The Honourable Captain Thomas Strangeways did not actually exist, and neither did the country of Poyais. They were both dreamt up by Gregor MacGregor in what is now known as one of the most audacious confidence tricks in history. It probably won't surprise you to hear that Gregor was not a cazique, nor was he a war hero, no matter how much he imagined himself to be one. He was, however, a real Scotsman, but that might have been the only truth he ever told. Gregor was born on the 24th of December 1786 in Glengyle, roughly 40 miles north of Glasgow. Glengyle was the ancestral home to the MacGregor clan, and Gregor himself was distantly related to Scottish folk hero Rob Roy MacGregor, a connection he would bring up whenever given the chance. Like most of Gregor's personal life, little about his upbringing is known for certain. What is known is that he left home at the age of 16 and joined the British Army. He became a part of the 57th Foot Regiment stationed in Gibraltar. This regiment would later earn the nickname the Diehards, after their legendary exploits in the Peninsular War. Again, Gregor would use the regiment's fame for his own gain later on, even though he had left well before the famous campaign took place. During his time in the 57th, he met his first wife, Maria Bowater. Maria came from a rich and well-respected family. Her father was an admiral, and other family connections included several generals and a member of parliament. Gregor used his wife's fortune and name to live a luxurious life, mingling with the elites and convincing others that he was much more important than he actually was. It was then that he started calling himself Sir Gregor MacGregor, even though no such title was awarded to him. The death of Maria in 1811 must therefore have come as a massive blow to Gregor. Not only did he lose the love of his life, he also lost his wife. The death of Maria meant that he lost access to the funds he needed to live the lavish lifestyle he had by now gotten used to. He needed a new way to claim fortune and fame. In the end, he decided to move to Latin America, where he would fight as a revolutionary soldier of fortune, with the emphasis on the fortune part. He landed in Venezuela, where he introduced himself as Sir Gregor MacGregor, a member of the famous Diehards and a Knight of the Portuguese Order of Christ. With a background like that, revolutionaries welcomed him into their army with open arms, and he was placed in command of a cavalry division. Despite having light on his CV, Gregor proved to be somewhat competent in his new position. During his time in Venezuela, and later Colombia, he won some minor skirmishes and gained the admiration of his fellow officers. He was also involved in two near-legendary battles. During the siege of Cartagena, the city was under attack by an army of over 9,000 Spaniards and Royalists. The city held for a few months, but eventually the supplies dried up and it became clear that Cartagena would fall sooner rather than later. Given the brutality of the fighting in South America, they knew that surrender would mean certain death. When things seemed hopeless, MacGregor led an heroic and desperate escape attempt and managed to guide hundreds of people to safety. In his second famous military exploit, he led the retreat of an army of 1,200 people. On his way, he faced a numerically and technologically superior Spanish army. Using the terrain to his advantage, he managed to defeat them. They positioned themselves behind the march, which rendered the opposing cavalry useless, while his army of archers rained fire upon the enemy. He eventually managed to reach the city of Barcelona, which he claimed for the revolutionaries. This would turn out to be the peak of his fame. Not long after the victory, he was discharged from the army after an internal dispute. While his time in South America brought him fame and triumph, it did not give him the riches that he so desired. He did, however, earn something that was arguably even more valuable: connections in high places. His role in the South American revolutions meant that he had close ties to legendary figures such as Francisco de Miranda and Simón Bolívar. In fact, he even married Bolívar's cousin, Josefa. These connections opened up many doors back home. After leaving South America, he traveled north to the good old US of A, where he ran what might be called a beta test for his Poyais scheme. He forged a fake document proclaiming that he would take over Amelia Island and then the rest of Florida, with backing of the US, Mexico, and even the Spanish, who, Gregor claimed, wanted to get rid of the territory. Armed with this document, he sold land in Florida on the promise of liberating it. He used the money to raise an army and actually managed to take over Amelia Island, but he never actually got around to moving onwards to the mainland. He lost the island a few months later and was forced to flee back to England. He didn't stay home long. Using his newfound fame, he quickly gathered money with the aim of raising another army, and then subsequently squandered all this money on fancy dinner parties. His landers were obviously unhappy with this, and Gregor was threatened with jail time. Luckily, he was bailed out by a mysterious figure only identified as Mr. Newt, who even supplied Gregor with the additional funds needed for raising the army that he had promised earlier. This time, the cash went towards its intended purpose, and not much later, Gregor once again set sail for the Americas. This second stint in South America went significantly worse than the previous one. He had already lost half his army before any fighting even took place due to unpaid wages and boredom. When their campaign did finally get started, it proved to be nothing short of a disaster. Gregor and his army managed to take the small town of Portobello, but were swiftly and brutally driven away only a few days later. Gregor barely managed to slip away with his life, while the 300 soldiers that he had left behind were all executed or sold into slavery. A second attack on Rio de la Hache met a similar fate. A lesser man would have returned home a failure. But not our dear friend Greg. Gregor returned to Britain as the cacique of a small Central American country. He claimed that the king of the Mosquito Coast, one George Frederick Augustus, had handpicked him as a new leader of the territory known as Poyais, and had ordered him to attract as many British settlers as possible. Of course, this was all a lie and the beginning of his biggest scheme yet. When he arrived back in London, he immediately got to work. Again, the connections he made as a revolutionary in South America came in handy, and he quickly gained invitations from many of the London elite, which helped establish his legitimacy. He regaled them with stories about his supposed kingdom, about the fertile lands, the lush climate, the helpful locals, and the bustling and modern city of St. Joseph that would be waiting for the brave settlers. Using this story as a basis, he quickly got to work selling land and government-backed loans. Now, you might be wondering how he managed to make everyone believe that he was a leader of Poyais. Surely somebody would have stepped up and mentioned that such a country does not even exist? Well, you have to keep in mind that this took place in the early 19th century. While modern technology allows us to easily stay up to date with the goings on all around the world, they didn't have that luxury back then. Many South and Central American nations were fighting for independence at the time, and countless territories had already declared themselves independent, so the existence of a country like Poyais wasn't such a leap. MacGregor was, by all accounts, a very charismatic man. Couple this with his in-depth knowledge of South American politics and the official documentation that he carried with him, and the story starts to sound a lot more believable. After all, why would a respectable man such as Sir Gregor MacGregor lie about something like this? The British certainly didn't question it, and on the 10th of September 1822, 70 settlers set sail on the Honduras packet. The ship was quickly followed by the Cannersley Castle, which left the UK carrying 200 more settlers. When the Honduras packet reached what was supposed to be Poyais, it quickly became clear that something had gone horribly wrong. They did not land in the busy and lively city of St. Joseph, but in an empty bay. Further attempts to locate the city quickly revealed that it did not actually exist, nor did the rest of the country for that matter. Things became even worse when the ship carrying supplies left, leaving the settlers to fend for themselves. The arrival of the Cannersley Castle brought with it more supplies, but also 200 more mouths to feed. Since there was no way for the almost 300 settlers to pay for the voyage back, and they wouldn't even have fit on the ship regardless, their only option was to stay behind and make the best of it. They did not, in fact, manage to make the best of it. Many of the hired laborers refused to work because they hadn't received any payment, and tensions rose when passengers of the Cannersley Castle accused the passengers of the Honduras packet of taking more than their fair share of rations. By the time the rainy season came, they were not prepared to handle the extreme weather. In early May 1823, the ship the Mexican Eagle stumbled upon the failed colony. By then, 10 settlers had died, and many more were deadly ill. The ship agreed to take the settlers back to Belize, where they would be cared for. Sadly, the rough journey made the sickness even worse, and almost 2/3 of them died either on their way or in the hospitals of Belize. When news of this failure reached the UK, it became clear that the settlers had been duped. However, nobody could even begin to guess the extent of the scam. Many people, including most of the settlers, didn't point their finger at MacGregor. Instead, They blamed the officials that had been involved in the planning and organization of the expedition. They figured that the charismatic cacique had been the biggest victim of them all, and that Gregor himself had been scammed by the people that he had put his trust in. The existence of Poyais was never even questioned. Even so, Gregor wasn't waiting around for the quarter to drop. He claimed that he obviously would have loved to stick around and defend himself, but you see, his wife was very sick, and he just had to spend the winter in Italy. For her sake, of course. In what should surprise nobody, this was another lie. His real destination was Paris. News of the scam had not yet reached France, and he started his Poyais scheme all over again. He convinced Compagnie de la Nouvelle Industrie, a trading company active in South America, to recruit settlers and investors for the territory. This time, his lies were discovered before the ships could set sail, and Gregor was arrested and imprisoned. However, he somehow managed to be acquitted of all charges, again claiming to have no knowledge of any scam and putting the blame firmly on the shipping company. The French authorities simply figured that it wouldn't be worth the hassle and sent him back to the UK. By now, his funds had almost completely dried up. To raise money, Gregor attempted to sell even more loans against his lands in Poyais, and for some reason, many people still bought them. However, when the real king of the Mosquito Coast started to sell land grants to the same territory, Gregor knew that the jig was finally up. When he had finally extracted every last cent he could from the Poyais scheme, he was almost as broke as he had been at the start of his venture. While his land grants and loans sold for over £1 million, he had invested a significant portion of that money into renting and refitting the ships, advertising, recruiting settlers, and living a lavish lifestyle befitting of a cacique. Don't worry though, he didn't have to spend even a single second living in poverty. When his funds dried up, he simply returned to Venezuela, where he was greeted as a hero. His rank in the army was restored, and he received a handsome pension. In Caracas, he spent his final years recalling his military exploits to anyone who would listen. And upon his death on December 4th, 1845, he was buried with full military honors, and his funeral was even attended by the president. Thank you for watching. I've been Thomas, and I hope to see you next video, where I'll answer the question, who is the Admiral of the Swiss Navy? Hiya.